Hi everyone, welcome back to Be Rich. It's me, Vinod, recording remotely from Tirchi again. Anand is getting ready to meet some of you for an event later on in the morning, so I thought I'd get this video recorded for you. I wanted to talk about de-dollarization and the concept what Kenneth Rogoff was talking about in his book, Our Dollar, Your Problem, where he talked about this idea that de-dollarization, when it does happen, which will eventually happen, thanks to what's happening geopolitically from the US, that it will not happen all of a sudden that we one day will wake up and the dollar has been replaced, but it will slowly develop cracks, and these cracks will turn into fault lines, and slowly it will start crumbling over its own weight. And he gave history in the book. If you've read it, he talks about the history of how the pound fell, and before how the Dutch fell, and how the American dollar could fall. And if you notice what's been happening recently, the surge in gold and the way the gold central banks are piling on gold, and if you see the geopolitical climate we are currently under with Trump and the trade wars, it seems to be a powder keg for such an event to happen. The recent article which I read in Financial Times drew some more impetus towards this, where de-dollarization seems to be happening at a faster clip than imagined before. And the country which is mainly doing this is, of course, China, and China seems to be slowly moving away from the dollar. And this is crucial to understand. For the longest time, the Chinese were considered to be the factory of the world. That means most people buy Chinese goods, and we do trading in B2B in Chinese, and we do B2C in Chinese. So they are one of the world's largest manufacturers and trading partners. That said, they are heavily reliant on the Americans for trade, and that is what the looming trade war is all about. If we step away from that and see what they're doing in the background to mitigate future problems for themselves, they seem to be moving towards using their currency as a reserve currency. What's happening is China's latest strategy, where Beijing has almost quadrupled overseas lending in bond investments, and overseas lending in terms of renminbi to 3.4 trillion, in terms of dollars, $480 billion in the last 5 years. The aim is to reduce the US exposure and promote renminbi as a trade and reserve currency. Of course, if Anand was here, he would say, but there's no match to what the size of the dollar trade currency is. I agree, it is not. But like Kenneth Rogoff said, these things will not happen overnight, but you can see the signs of it appearing here and there. Will it eventually lead to, a currency replacing the dollar remains out in the open. That I would conclude towards the end as a video where I think this could go. Trade financings has surged in renminbi. Global trade finances rose from under 2% in 2019. It doubled and doubled again. Now it's almost at 8% in 2025, making it the second most used currency after the US dollar. Of course, when you're talking about the distance between how much the dollar is used and the renminbi used, that is a vast ocean. But the renminbi is making strides. Cross-border systems such as the CIPS, the Chinese Cross-Border Interbanking Payment System, now handles over 40 trillion per quarter. And SWIFT transactions, which have been always dominated by the dollar, the renminbi is also simultaneously expanding there, signaling a migration away from dollar channels. So a lot of you might be wondering, why are the Chinese doing this? The Chinese were happy using the dollars, and they've been stockpiling the dollars for a very long time, if you realized. If you see foreign debt held by American debt held, China was ranking one of the topmost. I still think they're one of the ones way up there. But the US-EU sanction of the weaponizing of the dollar, which Anand spoke about, how Biden triggered this move where countries globally started saying the Americans and the EUs can start using the currency, reserve currency, as a weapon to enforce their worldview and their ideas of how the world should be. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. All I'm saying is it is something which they've started using as a lever. So what have the Chinese done? They've started talking to countries individually like Kazakhstan, Kenya, Angola, Ethiopia, and started doing settlements in RMB, where bilateral settlements. Meanwhile, they're also doing policy coordinations from Hong Kong to develop a bond connect and a repo market to build more liquidity for the RMB. One of the most important things, like Anand said in a previous video, is if you want to be a reserve currency, is you have to be very liquid. So the outcome is the RMB has been dominating as a fixed income asset, and it's now usable as a collateral, and it's roughly 30% of China's trade settlements are done in RMB. So what we feel is this marks gradually from a unipolar world where it was always the dollar. We're slowly moving to a multipolar system, reducing the dominance of the dollar. While China seeks the currency to dominate, the RMB, but it's not seeking a hegemony, meaning it doesn't want to become the reserve currency. It's looking for a strategic optionality, as they would say. So fracturing the global order. And this is what Kenneth Rogoff was saying. China is not trying to become, the RMB to become a reserve currency, but they rather leave it there as an option in case the Americans tomorrow decide to turn on China the way they did to Russia and start to weaponize the dollar against them. They can say, no problem. Here, we can still continue to do trading. We already have our systems in place. We'll just switch over. So what do you think about this? Do you think this is something that is imminent? And do you agree that this was done by the Americans? It's a self-inflicted wound, which they could have avoided from the time of Biden by keeping the US dollar independent of any, global views or geopolitical tension. I'm not saying weighing into what is happening in Ukraine and Russia. I'm just saying if you draw something as a weapon into a fight, then we will find people recognizing that and finding ways to mitigate what you're doing to them. So this is what is happening. Tomorrow I wanted to talk about what's happening in gold thanks to all this and explain why the gold market moved the way it did, and probably try and draw a parallel with this too. So thanks for watching the video today. I'm sorry I couldn't bring Anand in. I hope you enjoyed the conversation I had with you about the idea of the RMB and the dominance of the dollar. Thanks for watching videos today, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.
It's a great privilege and honor that so many of you in thousands have subscribed to my channel and have supported me. I have written 2 books in English, The Alchemy of Money and Ordinary Stocks, Extraordinary Profits. These books are published by us and are ready. If you want to procure a copy, send us a message to the WhatsApp number given below and my team would respond to you. If you want an Amazon Kindle copy, you can click the link below. Finally, those who wish to consult with me can send a mail to berichenglish@gmail.com. Once again, I thank you for your support. If you like this video, press the subscribe button of my channel, hit the like button and turn on the bell notification.